My wallet is sobbing. I can hear it in the hall now. It is breaking down, crying.
Yo, it's the Euro Legions podcast. Tune in, stay a while with John on the sound. Yeah, he's mixing with style. Malcolm, smooth voice like silk on the breeze. Rich in the corner, loving purple spreadsheets with ease. Euro Legions, yeah, we're taking the crown. John, Malcolm, and Rich, best trio in town. Sound so crisp, voices smooth and tight. Tune in every week with a podcast in flight.
Okay, welcome to episode 91 of the Euro Legions podcast. And this one is dropping on the week of Legions Con. So it's very, very, very exciting news. And here we are with not just the three of us, but we have a fourth guest co-host, we're going to call him this week. You know, he's more than just a guest because he is one of the men at the Four Horsemen studio and one of the most outwardly facing ones, the ones that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. We used to know him as a fan and a customizer, and he's still that, I believe, but he now works for the Four Horsemen. So it's Jeremy Girard. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me back. Happy to be here.
So we're going to do a latest news section later on, but it's actually going to be just you doing the news for us, you know?
Tell you everything you need to know, right?
Exactly. And Rich, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Your holidays?
Yeah, I'm on holiday as of tomorrow. I finished work already. I'll be heading off to Wales, obviously, where we always go for holiday.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. So yeah, a week of probably constant rain there, but we've got a hot tub at the cottage, so that's good.
Yeah. So that's the explanation why we're actually recording this a little bit ahead of Legions Con week. Because even though it's going to drop on Legions Con week, because Rich will be away in the land of no reception good enough for this type of crack. So
potato-powered Wi-Fi. Yeah, it's not great over there.
And Mal, how are you doing? You getting into the zone now?
I'm very excited for Legions Con, and I'm sure as this drops, I will be even more excited, and I will have finished for work at that point too.
Yeah, exactly.
I should tell Jeremy that I had my first night the other night of not being able to get to sleep because my mind was going, oh, Legions Con, I'm so excited for Legions Con. It's like, how old are you? Come on.
I love the fact that you're all talking about being off work. And that is the busiest work week. Like we're exact opposites here. You're all on holiday, and I'm like working 16-hour days for 2 straight weeks.
Yeah, the difference is, Jeremy, you love your job. You know?
I do. That is true. That is true.
Yeah. We're just doing it to buy Legions.
Unless any of my senior managers are watching, in which case I love my job, obviously. Hey!
I used to have this thing, and especially when I've been a bit injured this year, so I haven't played golf, which is my favorite kind of pastime outside of this. So I used to, as I was trying to fall asleep, I'd maybe go around the golf course, play the last round I played in my head. We'd get about 2 minutes into it, and you'd be done. So now I can just play the walking around the Legions Con boots in my head, and maybe remembering what it's like last year, but also imagining how it's going to be different this year. In terms of, I know where the different people are, having just looked at the map kind of continuously for the last couple of weeks. And also, of course, imagining how the armory is going to look, how the Four Horsemen is going to look in that room. Jeremy has a better idea than us, and I'm sure all will be revealed. I think that stuff is, we have the map. I think that's good for now. We don't need to, we need to then experience it in person.
Yeah.
I think is the best way to experience that. But Jeremy, so this is, I believe, the 5th Legions Con, is that right?
Or the 6th Legions Con.
The 6th Legions Con.
Yeah, there's that virtual one, because 1999 was the first one. And then we had the virtual one, but technically this would be, if counting that one, this would be the 6th one. But I've said this before, that it's almost like the first 2 in some ways don't feel like they count in the same way, because that first one was just, an after hours 3-hour meetup, because the second one was virtual. It really feels in a lot of ways that 2021 was the first Legions Con. And that was one that was just a single day. It was ToyCon New Jersey was a 2-day show. This was the Sunday of ToyCon New Jersey. So then in other ways, 2022 almost feels like the first one. It's really weird. Every one of them is special in some way, but technically this is number 6.
Wow, that's amazing. And you were, when did you start working for the Horsemen then officially? Like, I know you were doing the website and all that, but when did you start as the marketing director?
I started talking to them about working with them at G-Con in 1999. So that was the point where G-Con was in the summer. It was usually like the week after San Diego Comic-Con. And it was the second G-Con. I had gone to both of them. And I was talking, before the show actually started, I was talking to Jim about what I do. And, he was, why aren't you working for us? Why aren't you helping us? So that's really where it started. So by the time that we did that first Legions Con, we had launched the website like a couple weeks, I think, before Legions Con. So I was working with them on a part-time basis at that point. It was the 2021 Legions Con, the one where Sir Girard debuted, that during that weekend, we started talking about like, look, I'm working part-time for you. Originally, I was supposed to work like 20 hours a month, and I was working like 60 hours a month. Wow. I also had a full-time job.
Yeah.
And we were like, there's only so much I can do not being totally dedicated and focused to this. What would it look like for me to be full-time here? And that's really what I wanted. I loved what I was doing. I wanted to be able to spend more time doing it. There were things I knew I could have brought to the studio that I just didn't have the ability to do. So that's when we started talking about it. We started negotiating, and then it was right after the new year that we agreed on terms. And the job that I came from, I had worked at for 14 years. So I gave them like a 2-month notice. So it was March 1st, 2022 that I started working full time.
Wow. So then the 22 Legions Con, which was the one in, that was the one that we went to, I think, guys, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the one in La Quinta.
Yeah, in La Quinta, yeah.
Yep, that was the Furious 4 year.
That's right, the Furious 4 years. I just want to, I have somebody posted in the Cabal during the week a video from the first Legions Con, and I just have a little clip here I want to place it because it kind of gives you a look at the layout there. Yeah. So you see,
that was Joe. Yeah.
So there's a question I'd quite like to ask, Jeremy. How exactly did you and Joe come to know each other and go about setting this up? What made you go, right, we need to do Legions Con?
So Joe has been a show promoter in New Jersey for years. I knew Joe as the guy behind ToyCon New Jersey. He was invited to G-Con as well. He had, just like I had a segment where I was talking about my customs, he had a segment where he was talking about his shows. And after we got off camera, both Joe Vassapolo and myself, we were there with our customs. We had our customs actually set up in a different room. This was the old offices for the studio. It's the same building as where we are now, but it was upstairs in a much smaller space. So we had some of our stuff set out and people were looking at them and taking photos, and Joe came over and was checking them out. And we just started talking, and we had met before. About a week or so after, he reached out to me and he said, hey, I've got this ToyCon New Jersey show. I think it'd be really cool to do kind of a Mythic meetup. Originally, Legions Con was called the Northeast Mythic Meetup. I actually have a logo for that I haven't looked at in years. I don't know where it is.
Collector's item.
Yeah. But that was originally what we were going to call it, because it was intended to just be like a little group of collectors and customizers hanging out and showing off their stuff. And I remember he looked at it and said, it doesn't have the kind of emphasis I'm looking for. I want something that feels bigger. So we were just like, well, do you just want to go low-hanging fruit and call it Legions Con? And he was like, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So that's what we did. We called it Legions Con. And the idea, that first year, there was no charge for anybody. Like, it was after hours at ToyCon New Jersey. ToyCon New Jersey closed up at 5. from 5 to 8, we had literally a little tiny room. It's a room they use as a classroom at the place now. So that gives you a sense of how big it is. And we just had a handful of us just set up. Really, no one was selling. It was much more of like an art exhibition. And you even saw the tables. I mean, people didn't have all big, dioramas and levels. It was just stuff on a table. That's pretty much exactly what it was. But I remember we did that. We had an absolute blast. And we went out to get something to eat after the show was done. And we're immediately like, our brain was racing about how we could grow this, what we wanted to do the following year, which of course, all those plans got scrapped because of COVID. But it was very, very humble beginnings. And I can absolutely tell you that back in 1999, I had no idea that it was going to get to the point that it is in 2024. I didn't have an idea that it would get there this quickly, but much less that it would really even ever get there. Because where we are now from where we came from in that short time it's nothing short of phenomenal.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember the COVID year one, even that was really well done. You had the real organization around it, really well done, as a kind of a foreshadow for what was to come. And obviously because it was online, it was even easier for people to attend. But there was I remember there being loads of people online at that. And yeah, that's kind of that was an indication that this is actually a serious thing and it's going to be going forward.
The one thing I will say about the COVID year that I'm thankful for is I mentioned that prior to that year, G-Con and Legions Con were two separate things. And we had even talked to the Horsemen at a point and said, hey, what would you think about tying the two together? And initially, they were very hesitant to do that. They were like, nah, G-Con's its own thing. We kind of want to keep it its own thing. Legions Con is independently run, because that is the truth. Is, while obviously Four Horsemen are, the platinum level guests at the show, this is still a Vatiri Productions show. It is, very much run by Joe and myself, but it is Joe's show. So originally they were a little hesitant to tie them together. And then that COVID year, I was working part-time with them. I remember us looking at the schedule and not wanting to put out a new wave, really not knowing what people's lives were going to be like with COVID. We've talked before about how we kind of slowed down a little bit that year out of respect for just the crisis that the world was in. So it just fell to the point that it made sense to do that G-Con reveal at the end of the year, and let's do Legions Con as well. And after that 2 days, we did Friday, we did the G-Con reveal, Saturday, we did the virtual Legions Con. Everyone had such a good time that they were like, maybe we do want to pair this together. Maybe this actually makes sense. And then when we got to 2021, we threw Intern for a Day on as well to create what we now know as, Mythic Week, where we've got Intern on Thursday, G-Con on Friday, and now the 2 days of Legions Con.
Yeah, because I remember the first G-Con, maybe it was even the first one, was Soul Spiller I watched. It was in August, or kind of end of July, August.
Yep.
And Arthur as well. It was kind of more linked to the end of San Diego Comic-Con kind of thing.
Exactly.
That kind of...
Yep.
So, and then obviously that, as you said, that changed and evolved into something quite awesome, as we have experienced ourselves and as we're so excited about later this week as you're listening to this. So, can you imagine?
I was going to say, I think that... I was going to say, I think that virtual one I think that's what gave me the confidence to go to the 2022 one. Because it took a couple of years to get there. It was a slow burner, but it was just because I remember Steba and Julie from Planetary Dog Toys had a session, and I went into a few sessions, but their session, and I put a comment up and they were like, oh, it's him. And I'm like, oh, cool. That's somebody from a completely different country is now reacting to me because they know me. And that's just, I think that started off the slow burner of actually, do you know what? This could be something I would really want to go for.
Yeah, for sure. It also made the people you're speaking to in the groups kind of real people, because there was lots of them there doing the presentations or whatever. And obviously then meeting in person is even better than that. And I think that's what this kind of brings to it, Right. And so this year's Legions Con and kind of Legions Con in general, I mean, you don't have to go into specifics, but what has been the biggest challenge kind of with the whole thing, as it's gone along?
The biggest challenge has probably been just fitting everything in. One thing that we always felt was important was that those who have supported Legions Con as exhibitors get first crack the following year. So after last year, we had a number of people reach out to us saying like, hey, we'd love to have a table next year, but we were sold out in 2023, and every exhibitor, with the exception of very, very few, just a couple of them came back for this year. So it's trying to find the right venue, because everyone loved the venue, right? We got rave reviews about the hotel, but one of the downsides with the hotel is I cannot fit any more exhibitors in that space. I'm capped out. So even now, I have a list of probably a dozen exhibitors who wanted to get in this year who couldn't. And I'm already starting to add some who say, hey, when you open up 2025, I want to be considered. And trying to be realistic. And I said, well, I can't imagine that I'm going to have enough of a drop off from 2024's exhibitors to open up a significant amount of space. And then to get through this actual guest list, wait list, that's going to be difficult. So just dealing with that aspect has certainly been a challenge. Another challenge is just trying to make sure that we're adding value every single year. Because the truth of the matter is we could do the same thing year in and year out. And there's a group of people, I'm probably talking to 3 of them right now, that would be like, I love it. Like, I love the environment. I love everything about it. If you did exactly what you've done every other year, I'd still be happy. But we don't want to rest on that success every single year. We're like, what can we do to make something cool, to make something new? I mean, this year, the Legion's Armory experience, which is probably the thing I'm most nervous about for this year. That was a brand new idea that we're bringing in. It's very likely going to be one of the most popular aspects of this year's show, and it's brand new for 2024. So that is certainly another challenge, the very realistic sense, both for Legions Con and for Horsemen Studios, of how do we top ourselves? Like, how do we do something this year that tops what we did last year?
Yeah, that's definitely, I can imagine. And I mean, with the Armory there, when you speak about that, it is an awesome idea. I think you've probably heard our show where we talked about it.
Yeah.
But it is scary for you because you want it to go right. It's like, it's like when you do anything, I suppose, but this has so many variables that you're not able to test. You can't test how long it's going to take people to go through and pick. You're going to have guys like Mal that are going to be sitting there going, oh, no.
I knew that was coming. Yeah. I've had
and you're going to have guys like Rich that are going to try and sneak out 10 bills,
And that's the thing too, even like with the Armory, the sense of limiting people to 2 builds.
Yeah.
There's, as a collector, I'm like, oh man, that stinks because there's 4 distinct colors. I want to build all 4, but we've kind of got to weigh that point where do I want to get a fraction of the people through that experience, but allow them to pretty much build to their heart's content? Or do I want to be very, very focused on getting them through somewhat quickly so I can have more people do that? I was down in Disney, and I've referred to the inspiration from Disney multiple times when it comes to the Armory, because so much of the idea behind the Armory came from our experience at Disney, both Eric and myself. And I was down there earlier this year, and we went to the Build a Lightsaber section in the Galaxy's Edge. And it was super cool. It was super fun, but it was incredibly rigid. Like it was part of a show. Like they knew down probably to like the minute how long it takes people to get a group in, to get them all to build, to get them out that back door so they can open up that front door and bring the next group in. Like they are a well-oiled machine getting it through that. And that's part of what we had to think about is, while it would be great to have someone come in and this be more of like a pop and swap session where they could spend an hour at the table trying different combinations, that's just not feasible because I'm going to get a couple dozen people through, as opposed to being able to really allow a lot of attendees a shot at this experience. So limiting people to 2 builds and also limiting the options. You know, something as realistic as, if you need heat to do it, we cannot do it. Like that's why all the arms and all the legs come together, because as you all know, you have to pop those pieces, you need some heat. The minute I'm putting multiple hair dryers out, I'm killing any kind of efficiency. Yeah. Not to mention it's going to be incredibly loud and weirdly hot in that room.
Yeah, exactly. Are people running either to the bathroom or to their rooms to get a basin of water, you know, or into the sink or whatever, the warm water. Yeah.
And if somebody puts a piece down on the floor and heats it up, they're going to melt the carpet, as I learned to my cost recently.
Yeah, we don't want that. No fire risk. No, I mean, the pop and swap, you know, you do that with your buddies out in the lobby, you know.
Yes.
All go in and, you know, say, right, we try and cover all the builds between, I don't know if you have six group of 6 people or whatever, however many people it's needed, get all the parts, and then, just get a table in the lobby, and that's at least 2 or 3 hours of fun.
Dave, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I really hope that goes well. I think the clear thing is that, if you get in, I think your message is, if you get in once to the armory, that's probably your chance, and go for it, get your 2 and get out. And maybe at the end of the day, if there's space on any day, see then. Otherwise, you know, that's your expectation should be to go into the armory once, whether you're, shall we say, an intern who maybe gets the chance, or the people that are selling, like you know, vendors, they'll get a chance, and there are 2 slots on the Saturday and Sunday. Yeah. So don't go dreaming of getting into all 4 of those, because I think that would be a very tough ask. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know. Right. And what else have we got at Legions Con? So we got G-Con, of course. We consider that kind of part of Legions Con at this stage. It's Mythic Week, okay? Legions Con is Saturday morning. Yeah.
Well, especially now that we have moved G-Con over to the hotel venue. Yeah. That was there's some stuff that happens with Four Horsemen Studios. I'm going to let you in on a secret. There's some stuff that it looks like we meant for it to happen, and it's just a happy accident that there's this like Four Horsemen magic that just comes out of it. And we just accept it. And it's wonderful to be a part of. Last year, we had always done G-Con at a room in the studio down the hallway. And we were supposed to do it there last year, in like last minute, like week of G-Con and Legions Con, we found out that room was going to be rented, because the space that we're in, we share it with a very large prop company. And there will be points where, you know, different movie studios will come in and just say, hey, we need to rent this for the next 3 weeks. And a room that you thought you may have had access to because no one had rented it, you suddenly do not. And that's what happened. So we scrambled. We contacted the hotel and we said, hey, can we utilize this space for this presentation? And they were totally cool with it, because they hadn't rented it anyway. It was already reserved for us. So we moved it there last minute, and it ended up being one of the coolest things that's ever happened to G-Con, because it allowed us to present to such a large group of people, to have that energy in the room. So that was really exciting. And doing that again this year, I agree with you. It feels like G-Con is now part of that Legions Con festivities. People have been asking, Legions Con should be a 3-day event. And I always kind of push back, because no matter how much longer we make it, there's always going to be people that want more. I think there's something to be said for leaving people wanting more. But G-Con getting tacked on does kind of give you that third day, especially because right after G-Con, you walk out of that room and the exhibits are going up and everyone is there and the exhibitors can start setting up their booths and the attendees are flowing in. That is where the level of energy is going to be so high.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about it, where we're arriving on Wednesday evening because we're going to intern. So and I basically said that once that Friday kind of afternoon after G-Con comes, then it's like click your fingers and it's done. It's and I can imagine then that's times 100 for you because you're being dragged everywhere and everywhere. But before we maybe get into what might or might not happen at G-Con, you've also been writing lots of lore. Obviously, we talked previously about the books that are coming. How's that coming along? Have you any? Doesn't have to be concrete update, but is it progressing well, or
It is. It's progressing really well. It's a very frustrating process in a lot of ways because it takes a really long time. I just want to get it out there. And, like the minute I'm done writing that last word, I just want to hit upload and let everyone read it. And I mean, I technically could do that, but that's not the best. No. It's not the best idea for this. So, the process of editing, and I've mentioned before, even someone like Cameron at the studio took a look at some of the stuff and he pointed out editing aspects about it that I had never considered. The example I've always used is there's a point in the book where a bunch of archers start shooting arrows and a soldier yells incoming because the arrows are coming towards them. And Cameron pointed out that phrase in modern military terms, that was like kind of coined during like the modern military era. It wouldn't have been something in ancient kind of warfare. Yeah. And again, Mythic Legions, we're not trying to be historically accurate in any way, but we do want there to be a sense of realism to it. Even some of the phrases that I use, in our normal speech, we use certain abbreviations and certain slang terms that you have to ask yourself, would these characters in this time period, in this setting, use these slang terms? And little editing things like that, they surprised me. Like I had to go back and I had to change a lot of that stuff to give the story more of a sense of authenticity. So going through that and then the layers of editing that you go through to get to that final piece are absolutely incredible. So that's really it's the actual story has been done for, almost a year now that it's been done, but it's just been going through stage after stage of editing as we get closer. I hope to have more of an update for it at G-Con, but it is going very well. That's the one positive thing I can say. While I'd like it to be going faster, at least every time something happens, I look at the end result and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is better. Like this, I'm happy we went through this exercise because what remains is a stronger story. It's a tighter story. I'm happier with what we have.
Yeah, because I think that that's what we will appreciate when we get the book in our hands and read it, is that those little small details are taken care of, because when it's sent out to print and it's out there, then you can't imagine Cameron coming to you like the day after it's printed saying, all those modern terms he used or whatever it might be,
And some of those things wouldn't have necessarily been bad. I think of a movie like, have you ever seen the movie The Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would say it wasn't that extreme. Like that was literally a modern kind of flavor on a medieval type setting. It didn't go to that extreme. Realistically, we probably could have kept in 99% of what we edited and it would have been fine. But it's one of those things where you don't realize how those little minor edits, when you make them, they add up to just give it, like I said, that more air of authenticity. It's just a stronger overall story, even though the plot and the characters and who does what and none of that changed. Like, none of the editors who looked at it said, I don't like the way this happens. I don't like this idea. All of the ideas are exactly what Eric and I plotted out. It's just all of this fine tuning.
Cool.
Did the editors make a point of saying very early doors, we're not going to look at the names? No, it's like you spell them however you want. We're not feeding back.
I would imagine that most of the editors just kind of gloss over the names and probably don't even like try to pronounce them for themselves.
How you end up with the uncone one.
Don't talk about that, Mal.
That's all right, yeah.
I know what you mean though, Jeremy. Yeah, with my organization, we publish statistics and commentaries with the statistics. So I've done that for years. And, they say, oh, you need to run it by someone. And you're like, really? Do I have to? I've done this loads of times. And then our like professional editing team come back and you're like, oh, yeah, that's much better. Okay, yeah. You just removed like a third of the words that didn't need to be there and this sort of stuff. It's like, right, okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. And when it comes to writing the lore, I mean, what was the favorite bit of the lore you've done in the books in terms of, factions or that kind of stuff?
I've mentioned this before that I have a stronger appreciation for certain characters after writing the book. I've said it multiple times that Artemis Silvercord is one of my favorite characters. I always liked Artemis. I always thought I like Artemis 2 as a figure much better than Artemis 1. The Artemis 1 figures got some technical challenges just at standing there and stuff. I love the Artemis 2 figure, but writing her character and giving her like a personality in the story, she is so incredibly cool. So there are a number of characters that I've grown more attached to. There are some characters that are really, really nuanced that I find them more interesting. That's one of the things that Eric and I said right out of the gate, is that this absolute good and absolute evil that exists in mythos, but it's not the norm. Like, we want characters that they can be a good character and still have some flaws to them. And that makes these characters so much more interesting. The challenges that they have to face and potentially overcome as part of this story. So it's been really a lot of fun to do that. It's been a lot of fun to connect the dots. It's been one of my favorite things is when Eric and I sit down and I tell him an idea that I have, and he's got this look that comes over his face, and he just kind of nods, and because he doesn't interrupt. He lets me finish. And there'll be times that I just keep talking because I'm waiting for him to give me something. And I'm trying to hammer it home, and then I'll finally shut up, and he'll just go, "That's cool." And when you get a "that's cool" from Eric Treadaway, let me tell you, woof, it feels good. On the back feels
because
wonderful.
Really he's just feeding you the rope, to hang yourself, and you keep talking and you keep talking, and it's like, is he going to still get a "gets cool" or do I need to stop talking here?
Yeah, but it's great. I get to work with Eric very, very closely. And I've never met somebody who I am on the same level with creatively the way that I am with Eric. We both he's 1 year older than I am, so we're pretty much the same age. We both have very similar socioeconomic backgrounds, a lot of the same references and just loves and everything that we grew up with. Because look, so much of what we do draws on our childhood and things that were important to us. So we really approach this with a very similar mentality. And I've said before that I love what Eric created. I think that's one of the reasons we work well together is I don't come in and say, I want to put my spin on this. I love what he's done. Instead of looking at what he's done and figuring out how I can tweak it, I look for the holes. And I'm like, these need to be connected. How about we connect it like this? Oh, you didn't figure out this. How about we do it like that? So appreciating and honoring what already exists and trying to add to it. And because we are on that same wavelength so frequently, it just works really, really well.
Yeah, for sure. When you have such a, awesome talent like Eric, you don't want to like kind of overwrite him. You want to augment it and kind of, just as you say, fill in the gaps.
Yep.
And in terms of the lore, these stories you write around the waves, be it mythic or cosmic, what's your favorite one of those, or what have you
the Red Star of Kubara. Yeah. That's my favorite one. Yeah, that one
around this time last year, actually.
It was. Yeah, I mean, there's no contest. That's the one where anytime I get to write Scapular, I'm thrilled. Love writing Scapular. He's hysterical. So anytime I get to write him, but that was also, I wrote that story. That story takes place during events that are in the first book. Like there's something that happens where I'd already written all that other stuff. So being able, I already had the Amir, like all of that was already in the book. So being able to write the Red Star and know that like, okay, this story's cool. And when you read the book, you're going to be like, oh, wait a minute. I totally get where that falls now. And it's going to just plug in and be a really cool little piece that connects some other stuff. So that one was a lot of fun to write because in my eagerness to get the story out there, I was able to get a little chunk of it, a little piece that connects to it out early.
Yeah, that's it. I love all the questions and stuff that brings up, but also I just like the story itself. They end up kind of chatting in a bar and it's kind of intimate, and it's also, you got this creepy thing in the background of the scapular and, the bit of magic going through the wardrobe and that kind of stuff. It's just everything.
I will say that you just mentioned it and it brings up questions and stuff. That's one of the things I'm excited for the book as well is this toy line, the stories. It has introduced a lot of questions. There have been a lot of things that have been referenced in the bios and so forth. I love mysteries. The only thing I love more than mysteries are answers. So I am really excited to pay off some of that, to say like, oh, you want to know this little thing we've alluded to here? You want to like understand what that's all about? Here you go. Like being able to give those answers while we also drop some threads and drop some other mysteries, because that's always been important. We've been doing that since wave one, but I don't want the book just to ask more questions. I do want the book to answer a lot of those current mysteries, and it certainly will.
Oh man, we're going to have a lot to talk about, guys.
We really are. And Jeremy, really can I check? When you were doing the Master and the Apprentice, when you wrote the Apprentice, were you thinking Irish? Because John obviously, John made it his own with the reading. So was that what you were thinking when you wrote that?
It is now. It is now.
Okay, exactly. There we
go. Jeremy, we reached out to him and said, could we do a recording of that? And we obviously did. Episode 39, if you're a new listener, go back and have a listen. We had fun doing it, and I think Jeremy enjoyed it. So that was the main victory for us. And other people did enjoy it too, so even better. But I want that figure now. That's the thing. When any figure that you do a voice for, and when we're doing the reading, then suddenly you just become totally attached to it. Even if
absolutely.
And even if it's like a figure that's just, as you say, one that's not a figure yet or whatever, you still, then you want the figure, or if it's a character that's out there, then you're even more into it.
Well, the stories add so much, because I've always said that it's incredible how this line has grown in the absence of a major media tie-in. The fact that all that we really have on these characters are those little bios and now some of these short stories. I always come back to the Mythic conversations I did where I read the chapter on the Covenant of Shadow. And these are 4 characters that have been out for quite a few years. And when I read that chapter, and they don't do a lot in that chapter, they sit around a table and basically say, like, yeah, let's be bad guys. That's kind of what that chapter is. But the fact that they had a voice, the fact that they had a personality, I remember reading in the comments a number of people saying, like, well, I didn't necessarily want these figures or this particular figure, but now I have to have them. So I think it's incredible where we've come in the absence of that like defined story content. And it gets me really excited for not only how, you know, people like yourself, collectors like yourselves that already love these characters, how this is going to increase your appreciation for them, but then the doors that it may open to other collectors who have maybe stayed away because they're like, well, I don't know who these characters are. I don't know what the story is.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the funny things that comes from you writing the book is, I've said before, I've never worried too much about the story. They're just, you know, really, really cool action figures. And yet, I love reading the bios. I love the little, like the Red Star of Kibara. That was a brilliant little story. And I'm really actually looking forward to the book to find and I think that's the key. Like you've just said it there is, I think that will then bring even more people in because they will have something to connect to other than, wow, this is a really cool figure. Because some people do seem to need that, don't they? So.
Even something, Mal, as simple as, say you've got a friend who doesn't collect toys but loves fantasy. And you're like, you know what, dude, check this book out. Check this story out. I know you love fantasy. And now they read it and they're like, this was really cool. I very much enjoyed this. Okay, now I'm curious. Who are these characters? I want to see the toys. I want to see these figures and stuff. I think that it opens it up, even if it doesn't turn someone who's not currently collecting into a massive super fan, it opens doors to get our stories, our characters, the realm of mythos in front of more eyeballs. And that's always going to be good.
Yeah. And just simply, you know, when, I mean, say a street team is out there or whatever, or you know, just a vendor at a show, like, what are these figures all about? You can kind of give them the 2-minute pitch, but you can also say, and there's a book, you know?
Absolutely.
And that also just kind of is a shortcut to, oh, there's a book. I like fantasy books. You know, let's have a look at that.
The other nice thing about the book too is, you know, we've talked before about the comic, right? So the comic that came out with the first Kickstarter, since then we've said that that's not canon, you know, and that was created kind of in a vacuum. It was created not with 100%. The studio wasn't operating the way they are today. So really, there's some things in there that weren't necessarily from Eric's ideas and thought process. Some of it was, and some of those ideas certainly do carry forth as canon. But, you know, that's one of the things with this is having this book. As we start thinking about other potential projects, this kind of becomes a Bible. Like this kind of becomes like, okay, this is the story. If we're going to do anything else, it's got to follow this because this is what happens. We can't have a character do something other than this because it doesn't make sense. And, you know, even knowing these characters, I've talked about that with other people where we talk about different things. One that comes to mind is I was talking to someone that wanted to do something where Thistlethorn was fighting off this and he had a sword. And I was like, no, he can't do that. They were like, why? I said, he's a pacifist. Thistlethorn doesn't use weapons. You know, and they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, that's one of the things we wrote. Fuzzmonks are pacifists. And I just wrote it because I thought it was fun. I thought it was a cool thing to make him have to find ways to help his faction without picking up a sword and swinging it around and stuff. So, you know, having these personalities, having this story gives us a framework to work within for lots of other ideas.
Jeremy, I'd like to thank you at this point for confirming my Xylona's flock of tree-hugging hippies theory. That's now been confirmed. So here we go. Yeah, that's excellent.
They may be tree-hugging hippies, but they are badass tree-hugging hippies. Okay?
And he just heard that Jesse Arnold doesn't like painting weapons in his Fuzzmonk customs. So, you know, he dug him out there with a bit of lore.
There you
go. Right. And when we kind of joined the chat here before we started recording, you said that you were writing bios. I wonder what that was for.
So I've been writing bios. We're talking about G-Con. Obviously, there are new characters that are going to be revealed at G-Con. And I am very excited that the bios for these characters have become kind of an important part of these reveals. You know, the one that I always remember was the Necronominus reveal. And when I read the story to that room for Bishop, the story of the horse being sickly and the stable master's like, hey, we got to put this horse down. And Gideon's like, can I just have one night with the horse to pray over him? And the stable master's like, okay. And the next morning, the horse is miraculously healed and they have a bond. Like, I read that. And like, there were people in the room like, oh my goodness. Like, I love that. That's so, and I remember reading that one, and I remember also reading that same reveal, Maxilius the Harvester, and talking about what a force of nature that character is, and people just, again, wow. Those were the two that come to mind where it really made me realize, and this is in line with what we're talking about, without a major media tie-in, without having seen these characters in a movie, that little bio is really my opportunity. It's our opportunity to explain who this character is beyond just a cool toy. Yeah, it's a cool, very, very cool toy, but what's the character's personality? How does it fit into this world? You know, give you that kind of connection that is going to be very important. So I've been working on all of these bios. On the last one right now, I was just finishing it up before we started this recording.
So we're delaying bio writing, guys. How about that?
Yes.
It's our fault if it doesn't come on time.
The one that I was working on, it might, I don't know, it might be Rich's favorite of this wave.
Oh.
And Rich, I'm not saying that as a gag. I'm not saying, oh, it's a barbarian. It's, you know, like this genuinely might be your favorite of the wave.
Oh, excellent. Oh.
Still have to wait though, Rich.
Yeah.
No. It's only 2 weeks. It's fine. It's 2 weeks.
True. It'll be the day that'll be the most difficult, but also the most fun is the intern day, because that'll be so close yet so far. You know? It's just, you can't touch it.
That day goes by so incredibly fast for me, because it's like I'm genuinely living from session to session, running around the studio. John and Mal, you'll get to see this year. Rich saw it last year. Yeah. But, you know, running from session to session, making sure that everyone's on schedule, that everyone knows how much time they have left. So when you're living in those little like 60-minute chunks, the day goes by so quickly.
So you're the kind of link man between all the stuff?
I'm very much the ringmaster at this. Yeah. I'm very much, when it starts, I'm the one that kind of welcomes everybody, and no surprise, I'm the one that loves being center stage. I work with a number of people that don't mind being center stage, but I don't know that any of them embrace it as much as I do. So they all kind of just let Jeremy do his thing. But then it's great because I get to do that. I get to welcome everybody. And then I get to turn everybody over to such incredibly talented, you know, colleagues, so they can experience the painting, the art, the sculpting, all those different aspects of what it is that we do. I get very excited because as much as I love the spotlight, I'm not like narcissistic. I'm not like, look at me. I love saying, look at this. Look at this. Like, I love being, I said a ringmaster, and that's a very apt description because a ringmaster doesn't perform. A ringmaster presents the other acts. That has always been a role that I very much cherish and embrace, and I think I do very well. And I love doing that at Intern, because being able to present and give you access to all these other cool sessions is just wonderful.
And
everybody there knows that Jeremy's the boss too. Yeah. Anyone wants in a painting demo or anything, you see them nervously looking up at the door once it gets, like a good way into session going, he's going to be here any minute, Okay.
I need to hurry up. But you also know it from the fan side as well. You've been to Intern as a fan before you started. So
that's how I started. That's unique. My first time ever at the studio was at Intern for a day with my son many years ago. And it was such a special experience that it's part of my driving force to want to make it equally as special for everyone that comes to this event.
Excellent.
And it's an incredible day. I remember when I got there last year, I walked in and stared open-mouthed at the cabinet as everybody does. And then Jeremy comes straight up to me and he's like, Rich, come look at this. So he takes me, I go around the corner and there's just this like life-size Thygar there. And I was like, oh my God.
Yep.
And Rich, I believe you had a question about Jeremy's display at Legions Con.
Oh, I did, yes. So it was you always have a table where you're just displaying stuff, not selling stuff. We had the critters. It's going to be the Shoguns this year. Mm-hmm. How soon after the last Legions Con do you do you know what? This is what the theme I'm going to do this time.
About a month. I took probably about a month off after. I'm one of these people that, like, I'm done my display for this year, and there's a part of me that doesn't know what to do with myself. Luckily, I have plenty of other stuff to do right now. But after Legions Con, there is kind of that period where it's like, okay, what do I do? We've just dropped the big 4 Horsemen wave. We've just had Legions Con. My display is done. So I do take a little bit of time, pretty much through the end of November, to just not get involved with anything. But once we get to December, I will start thinking about next year. We're already in the process of planning Legions Con 2025. The ball's already rolling on that. So to be able to do what we do with that, we can't wait until after this year to start planning next year. So there's already things, even the day after Legions Con, I will have work that I need to do to reset everything for 2025. So about a month, and then I start planning the display.
Right. Excellent. I have your Shoguns here, so we're gonna have a little look, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
So, you stop us on any of the ones here you want to talk about. The first one here we have here, but obviously you talked about Artemis, being a fan of her character in Mythic. So what did you do here, or what was your here with this?
I did a whole show on Mythic Conversations this week about this.
Yeah, so we won't go too deep into it because of that. But
some of the stuff I talked about here is I did my first Mythic Shoguns quite a few years ago. Rich, I think you might have actually bought some of them back then.
Did. I bought 5.
You bought 5 of them. So that was a period. It was very different. And I mentioned this on my show this week. That's when I used to have the Saturday morning sales where I would, like on a Saturday morning, I would drop something on my Instagram or on the Cabal and I'd say, okay, this is what's available. And I don't know if it was you don't know what you're going to get, timed nature, it's one and it's done type thing. But that was definitely right up Rich's alley because he was one of my best early customers. He picked up quite a few of my early custom pieces. And I did, again, a number of Mythic Shoguns at that point. I did Artemis back then. Originally, it was kind of my version of kind of like a warrior version of Disney's Mulan. But that ended up transforming into the one that we see here because by the time that I did this one, I did have access to the Artemis 2 parts, which I like better than Artemis 1. So that was one that was an update, whereas right now on screen, you also have the Gorgo. Gorgo was one that I hadn't done previously, but when I decided that I wanted this display, not just to be samurai versions of like Mythic Legion samurais. I didn't want these just to be nameless characters that used Mythic Legion's parts and samurai type influence. I wanted to reimagine the actual characters of Mythic Legions and of Mythos in this fantasy feudal Japan style setting. So doing that version of Gorgo was, part of what I did here. Gorgo's always been one of my favorite character designs. So that was a really fun one to do.
Right. We have a few more. Warrior.
Yep. Warrior's another really old one. I did that one very early on years ago, whereas Scapular's a brand new one I did. Again, my love for Scapular. This was one that I was really excited to do. This was one, visually, even something like the chest plate. I wanted a chest plate that looked similar to the one Eric sculpted for it, the new Scapular. Anthony from Toy Forge had a chest plate that kind of looked like that, one of the custom plug-in ones. So kind of assembling all of these different pieces. And it was a fun project because being able to look at these existing characters and kind of say, okay, what is the essence of these characters? Like, what elements do I have to bring into the design? And then what elements do I tweak a little bit to get that samurai type theme to create the mythic shogun that I wanted?
And then we have the Emir, of course. Yep. That's with the Red Death soft goods. Yep. Is that right?
That's the Red Death soft goods. It's a silver mask that was from Wolf King Customs. A funny picture, a funny custom like that. Sometimes with my customs, it's like one piece that sets me down that path. I didn't even intend to do the Emir. I knew I was going to do Scap. I didn't know I was going to do the Emir. But then I found that little samurai mask that Wolf King Customs had done in a fodder bin. And immediately I said, oh, that painted silver would totally work for the Emir. Yeah. And it set me down the path to do that particular custom.
And this is this Twick here?
Yeah, that's Thwick. And, the main character element of Thwick is his smile. So using another Wolf King custom part, that dragon warrior lower mask, to really accentuate that grin on Thwick is how I, executed that.
When you said about that, I thought that was a fantastic idea, and I must admit I'm tempted to nick it for something at some point.
That's why
it's really cool.
I've always shared my recipes, since the beginning. I've never understood the mentality of I want to keep this information close. I've always been absolutely sharing. I feel bad sometimes because people will message me and they'll say, oh, can you tell me what your paint match for that was? And it's never that I don't want to share. It's that I'm horrible with that. Like, I literally just mix paints until I get what I want, but I usually don't even remember what paints I used, much less like percentages. I've seen other people that are very specific about how much they used. You would laugh at how incredibly disorganized and messy I am with that stuff. So whenever I say, like, I don't really remember, I don't have a formula for you, it's not me not wanting to share. It's genuinely me not having it. But I do know the recipes of figure parts that I use. And I've shared that since the very beginning for anyone that wants to try to replicate the custom. More power, please. That's what they're there for.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of people have taken that up as well with their own stuff. I think it was a very good precedent to set at the start. Yeah, paint matching. I can tell people what paints I've used to match, but the quantities, as you say, it's a little bit of a soup around on the palette until you get it.
These are a couple older ones that I did. Just an elf builder and an iron knight. Again, these were kind of so. These were done before this year. The reason I decided on this project was I knew that because of my schedule, I couldn't necessarily do a whole display of brand new customs. Now, I ended up doing enough brand new customs that it would have filled the display because I did a lot more than I intended. But my original thought process was I need a handful of already existing customs that I can pull right out of the display to see this, this exhibit with. These were two that I had done many, many years ago, where I was going more for kind of generic characters as opposed to the named characters that I did for this project now.
And when do you get the time in the day to customize then? Is it on the weekend or?
A lot of times it's on the weekend. Yeah. Sometimes it's during the night. There's a lot of nights where my wife is either volunteering or, following one of her own hobbies and doing something that she's doing. So I have a little bit of extra time, and sitting down at the table and doing a little painting to unwind, that tends to happen. I do a lot of planning for my customs. So when I actually sit down to do them, they go a lot faster than they probably seem sometimes, because I do so much like prep work and planning that when I do finally sit down, I'm very, very mission driven.
Gotcha. And I suppose then you have the motivation to get it done because you know where you're going. So And do you have a paint station always kind of set up? Or
I do. I sit. It's very, very funny. I sit in the back room next to the boiler, right on the other side of this wall here.
I think I remember you doing a stream from there once.
Yeah, it's a little pink table that my daughter, it was like her little toy table, for years ago when she was a kid. And I just ended up putting it downstairs, and that's what I use to paint at. It's way too low, but I'm so used to it now that if I had a better paint station, I'd probably be like lethargic and not know what to do with it.
Yeah, you'd probably get backache or something.
Yeah.
Right. Attila with his hammer.
Very easy one. That was one when I talked about it this week, I tried a number of different things for Attila, and everything I did to take it further away from just the Attila figure felt wrong to me. So I ended up just pulling it back and really just giving him a torso and loin piece or waist piece from a Walter figure that I painted gold, giving him a sword in that lower mask. And wow, the level of customization is so minor. When I was done, it really did feel like the character himself.
It really looks like a custom. So even if you say you didn't do too much, it looks like a very well done. And who's this? This is one of the.
Again, another one of the ones that I did early on. It was a shadow elf that was from that early Mythic Shoguns period that I was talking about, where Rich brought a bunch of them. That was just a shadow elf warrior with some articulated icons armor on it.
Yeah, I've got a version of this that I got from Jeremy.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Pretty cool. Oh, we got Bromden.
Yep. So Bromden's a newer one.
Favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
that was one you posted earlier this week, or?
Yeah, and it was, so this was one. I love those moments when I'm customizing where I don't know what I'm making and something comes out that I end up just loving. And that's what happened here. I was playing around this weekend or last weekend, and I had this started with that helmet. So that helmet comes from the new Furay Toys like rabbit figure, which I had used that custom for my samurai version of Atlas. So I had the helmet left over, and I was like, oh, it fits really well on this dwarf head. It's actually the dwarf head that comes with the Legion's Con Day 1 set. And I was just playing around, and I was painting. And when all was said and done, I looked at it, and I said, this looks like Bromden Ironjaw. And the Bromden Ironjaw that I had done for the display, I didn't like as much as this one. So I actually had Bromden wrapped up in bubble wrap in my case, ready to go to New Jersey. And I ended up opening up the case, taking him out and replacing him with this one. Because just in the 11th hour, this guy emerged as a replacement for Bromden. And now he's coming to New Jersey.
Love it. Yeah.
Skeleton, just another early one. Again, another generic type character, but probably the one of those early generic characters that I still like the most. Just something about that skeleton and that silver armor with the 4 arms. Yeah. And I remember when I did that, when I actually used that back adapter and popped those arms in it. At the time, and this was years ago, no one had done that. this was before Alithia, this was before Okiedos. And I remember people just being delighted and surprised. They were like, oh my goodness, I can make a forearm skeleton by using that back adapter piece, that wing adapter. And there were a number of people that, kind of used that as a springboard for their own creations.
Yeah. That's what there was always somebody that did it first. And you were one of the very early guys in the customizing scene for
sure.
Mythics. So we have a lot to thank you for. Look at this orc.
Yeah, so that's one, again, an older figure that I did. That's one that I actually replaced that head. As much as I like that head, I don't have as personal a connection to it. I ended up replacing it this week with a head that Emil Wickman had actually done, because it was the first head he ever did for Wolf King Customs. And it just, as I was packing everything up, I was like, as much as I like the look of this, I really want this to have more personal meaning for me. So I swapped them. And I mean, I literally, the ogre that had the Emil head, I just swapped. So this one is now in my regular display with Erithir's forces. That head is on a Kurzog body, and the head from Emil ended up on the custom.
Cool.
Yeah, and the ogre scale samurai, again, I bought one of these from you, Jeremy. Different head, but they're so imposing. Yeah. It's like just that bigger scale samurai makes such a difference when you've got a few of them displayed together.
Absolutely. Yep.
And the cat, I love this head.
Yeah, that's the bonus piece that was in the 2022 Legions Con set, the Furious 4 set, Cody Cat head. I just love that look of the kabuki style face paint. It's something I've done on a number of different customs. It's very low hanging fruit. It's a very easy thing to do that just kind of looks cool. So that was me just wanting to paint that kabuki style makeup. This isn't really meant to be any specific character. Again, he came into the display initially just to say, okay, I need a couple characters to flesh out the display. So he's meant to be more of a generic Jagualian type character.
And that kind of the face paint that Jeremy's talking about, I wholeheartedly stole one of his ideas. So Jeremy did a mouse with that face paint.
I did.
And I got someone to paint me one, not exactly the same. We didn't want to do a complete copy, but the similar sort of paint scheme. And I love the figure. So cool.
So these are two named characters. These are two newer ones that I did for the actual display this year. So I've got Urzak and the Blood Armor, using the Vorgus Vermilius 2 figure. And again, I mean, it's an ongoing theme for this entire project, just trying to figure out what are the essence of these figures, what are the essence of these character designs, how do I tweak that for my Mythic Shoguns display, what existing parts do I need, what third-party parts, what other toy lines, just kind of integrating all of that to create a design that hopefully fits into my Mythic Shoguns theme while still immediately, to someone that knows the characters of Mythos, they can look at this and immediately say, oh yeah, that's Urzak, or oh, that's Blood Armor.
Yeah, that's cool. And do you have a specific layout planned for how they look in the display? Or
I do. So what I do, I've done this every year before Legions Con. I do set up the tables like in my garage, set everything out so I can see exactly where I want things to lay out. If for no other reason, just on a very practical standpoint, when I get there and time is of the essence, I'm not like messing around and figuring out where things go. I have a plan. In my previous life, when I worked in corporate America, I did a lot of events. I did a lot of trade shows and stuff. And we always found that, we would literally map out the booth in the office. If we had a 10 by 20 booth, we would take out masking tape, put a square around for 10 by 20. And we would set everything up in there so we could stage it, so we could figure out what the flow was going to be like and so forth. And that's definitely a lesson that I've kind of taken with me, where I like to stage things as much as possible so I can do any of the design tweaks, any of the design thinking when I've got a little bit more time and flexibility versus when I'm up against the clock to get it done.
Yeah, that's definitely a top tip for all Legion's Con exhibitors. Isn't that right, Rich?
It is. It's something I learned a valuable lesson of. My planning this year is so much better than last year. It felt like it took 24 hours to set up that table last year.
It did. And
That's very on to bed. Rich was just stumbling out.
Yeah. I was in the pub. Probably almost finished in the pub by the time you got out. So we got a Gideon here, Jeremy.
Yeah, Gideon and Thistlethorn. There was a point.
Thistlethorn's so good.
These were two characters that weren't on my original list. Originally I had made a list of the characters I wanted to do because things I had ideas for, characters I thought about, and neither of these were characters that were immediately I had ideas for. And after I did Artemis and Attila, I said, you know what? I should do all four of the heroic faction leaders. So I should do Gideon, I should do Hera. And that's really what led to that. It's like I said the other night, I was at 8 or 9 characters that I didn't intend on doing. I ended up doing after the fact, just as I got deeper into the project and more excited for the project. But both of these are characters that came out in the later stages of the process, and they ended up being, a couple of my favorites.
Yeah, they look great. Then we've got Azar and Zazar.
Yep, Azar and Zazar and Hera. I just talked about Hera. Azar and Zazar, the notable thing on them is they're the only customs in this display that feature a brand new head that I had created specifically for this display. I knew I wanted them to obviously have the same head. I didn't just want to use the existing Azar and Zazar heads, but I wanted it to be tied in a little bit. Immortal Collections have some wonderful Oni heads, and at first I was going to just use some of them. That blue 4-armed Zazar here originally had an Immortal Collections Oni head on it. But as I was looking at those, as cool as they were, I've used them before in my display. I've used them on my table. So I wanted something new. So once again, I worked with, I tend to work with very similar teams of people. Like once I have a group that I work with, I love working with them over and over. So once again, working with Walter DeMarco of Mass Customs for the sculpture and Len LaGuardia of Wolf King Customs to print. I gave marching orders for Walter were, look, I want it to have kind of the horn structure of Azar and Zazar, but I found a really cool print, this old Japanese print of an Oni, and that was kind of the facial structure I wanted to replace the normal one on Azar and Zazar, and he did a wonderful job combining those two things to create this particular piece.
Yeah. It really works.
No, those are awesome. Yeah.
The torso, the 2-arm torso.
Yeah, and again, that's something I already had. That entire figure existed in that format. The head is the only thing that was painted new for that figure. And then I did Azar specifically. What I said the other night was because Azar and Zazar they're identical. They're just different colors, basically. I wanted to flip that and intentionally make them not identical. So the fact that Zazar is taller and he's got 4 arms versus Azar is shorter and squatter with oversized hands and feet, trying to explore. Because again, when I do this, I want to create cool looking figures, but my background is as a designer. So I approach a lot of this stuff, I think, differently than some other customizers, because I do approach a lot of these customs as design challenges. A lot of my thinking is the same exact thinking that I used to have when I was working with clients designing like websites or logos or stuff like that. I really do think about those different design lessons that I know and I've taught and stuff like that. So saying, okay, well, Azar and Zazar are normally identical. Let me do the exact opposite. Let me instead flip that and make them very, very different and intentionally have different design elements on them as a contrast to the Azar and Zazar we know in Mythos versus the Mythic Shoguns versions.
Love it, love it. Right, couple more here. Vampire,
yep.
Rich.
Yep.
Baron Malagar and Brother Mandibulus. So as I mentioned, I decided to do all of the heroic faction leaders, and then that quickly made me say, I should probably do all the evil faction leaders, but I didn't want to do Lucretia and Morgulith. As I was thinking about those designs and what I could do with them, I wasn't excited about either of them. So this is another lesson for me where I was like, dude, this is supposed to be fun. I was just contrasting this to doing design work that I would get paid for. That was actual work. I mean, I had to do that. This is meant to be enjoyable. So I said, you know what? I don't want to do Lucretia and Morgulith, but I really think it would be fun to do Baron Valagar and Brother Mandibulus. So allowing myself to substitute those characters for those faction leader placements is just an example of me, again, wanting to create something cool, wanting to have a cohesive exhibit, but also wanting to enjoy my time creating these.
Yeah. Like these almost look to me like they could be in Mortal Kombat or something like that, you know.
It's got a shred of vibe, I think.
Especially the Mandibulus.
That's the one, yeah.
My goal with all my customs has always been, I want them to feel like they could come out in the line.
Yeah.
I want them to feel, and there's a number of customizers out there whose work I think is phenomenal, but their end products do not look like Mythic Legions figures. Like, their end products are amazing, and I hope they keep doing what they're doing because their artistic style is what makes them unique. And I totally embrace that. My style since the beginning has always been, I want these to feel like they could come out in the actual main line. I want to put these on a display and you not be able to necessarily tell which one is a custom and which one is a production piece, because the design thinking and the execution behind both of them, it follows that same pattern. And that's been a lot easier to do these days because now I get to actually work on the main line. So my design thinking does get to bleed into certain characters.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And can I check, Jeremy? Now you seem... Sorry, John, I'm interrupting.
No, you go. Jeez.
You from what you've said, you seem to have a bit less time to do the customs now.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you find that makes you more attached to the ones you do, or does that not really have an impact? You just literally have less time.
I don't know that it makes me more attached to them. I've always kind of had an attachment to my customs. A lot of the customs I've sold over the years, I made 2 of because I wanted literally one for myself. So I have sold a fair amount over the years, of course, but there is always an attachment to the art I create. So I don't know that because I have less time, if I like the ones I create any more than I used to. I know that part of me having less time is also the free time I do have being driven to customize a little bit less than I used to. Because for years, this was my creative outlet, right? This is exactly what I did to flex those creative energies. Now that I get to do all the writing that I do, it's a different kind of creativity, but it's certainly creativity. So being able to do all of the lore and all of the writing, that is certainly part of it. And there's also a very practical aspect of, there are certain customs that I would have done that I haven't done because I want to bring that idea into the main line as an actual production figure. So there are some customs, there are some combinations and stuff that I intentionally hold back because I know it's something that we're going to do, or an idea I may have for a Legions Con figure or something like that.
Right, yeah. And I remember saying when you did the Kitsune initially, didn't you? You preempted the Horsemen, didn't you? Wasn't Eric planning on making who turned out to be Krotos a Kitsune?
Ops? Yeah. I didn't preempt them, so we did. That was before I was working full time. We did the Kitsune, and Eric told me much after the fact that Krotos was originally a fox. Like when he was originally thinking about the healer character, it was going to be a fox. And then he saw what I was doing with Len, and he didn't want to step on those toes. So he decided to rethink Krotos, and he made him the satyr instead. And, we've taught him, and I have talked about this, and he's happy that he made that change, because the design work he did on Krotos ended up driving a lot of the other decisions on the Alithia wave.
Okay.
But there is also part of me that's like super bummed that I didn't get an Eric Treadaway Kitsune figure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, someday we could.
Yeah. Never.
He's in the lore now, isn't he?
He is. So he's technically in the game, and because the game is canon, the Kitsune race and my specific character Kickapoo is technically lore for Mythic Legions.
There you go. So
that's amazing.
We got it there one way or another. So we have Atlas here.
Yep.
That's using the Legions Con exclusive.
That is using the Legions Con exclusive head. That is also using, I mentioned earlier, the Furay Toys rabbit figure. This was one that I had a different idea. I was going to reuse one of the figures from last year for Atlas. And then in the 11th hour, I decided to put this together. It better matched the character design elements of Atlas. And this is one of my favorites. This one and the Scapular are probably my favorites in the actual collection.
Yeah, this might be my favorite one.
Yep. And then Malachi Cinderhorn. Again, actually, what I said the other night was kind of bringing it back somewhat full circle, where a lot of the early figures I did were just 2.0 bodies with articulated icons, armor on top of it, and maybe a little bit of paint. That's exactly what this is. So many of the ones that I did didn't follow those parts recipes. And then with Malachi, it just made sense to do that again. And that's what ended up working here.
Yeah, he's cool.
Yep.
Right. Got three more, I think. So
Lord Adon was a contrast to Malachi. And then while I had already done a swig for the 1,000 Swigs display, I really loved the idea of doing a swig in my Mythic Shoguns. And when I was thinking about it, the idea of, 1,000 Swigs being all over the realm and they're all like acting as spies for Noglin, I was like, well, that's kind of like ninjas. Like
yes.
All these ninjas, hiding in the shadows, reporting as spies. So that ended up being my ninja swig. And it uses soft goods actually from C. Jessam. So C. Jessam had done this really cool ninja set. I had painted up. I have a Kitsune ninja head that we did with Wolfgang that I painted up, and I sent it to CJ as a gift. And he used that head on his model to model this ninja costume. And then again, full circle, I got this ninja costume from him to do my ninja swig.
Awesome. Are you going to get him story in the 1,000 Swigs photo, or?
Yeah, I'll have this one for the 1,000 Swigs that I'll bring up. And the other one, the first one I did a swig cosplaying as Sir Girard for Legions Con.
Amazing. And the 1,000 Swigs inspired us too, because I got 2 Swigs coming along. Yeah. Mal, you've got one, haven't you? And John, is it the weird one you showed yesterday?
Yeah, well, that was a joke.
In our own group. Okay.
That was a joke.
You should do that anyway.
No. You guys have heard the story about 1,000 Swigs and how that all started because I made a mistake, I assume.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I have to say that in all my years of marketing, this might be my favorite thing I've done. The fact that I was able to turn over ordering Swig into this absolute love fest for this bumbling goblin alchemist has become just a wonderful, like, happy accident. It's like what I said earlier, these happy accidents, these moments of magic that happen around Four Horsemen Studios. This is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, I mean, I had to buy an extra one to do this custom, and I wouldn't have bought it otherwise. So
there you go.
There you go. There's one extra
marketing at work.
Yeah, and just the fact he's a spy. I mean, John and Mal have seen my two.
Yeah.
So one's an actor and one's an outdoorsman, and they're infiltrating their particular sort of areas they're going into, sort of thing. And it's just great fun.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, I got to order soft goods clothes, to which my daughter loved them. Bless her. She was like,
nice.
She's like, you're dressing up your dollies. I was like, they're action figures, and I just happen to have clothes for them. I don't know what you're talking about.
So this is the last one I showed. I revealed this actually on the show. And again, this started. I had, the torso and waist piece from Bouchatti Pelvicus, and I realized that I could paint those little, like plate pieces. I could paint it like a cross, like Sir Girard wears. And I said, oh, maybe I should do a Sir Girard for the Shoguns. And as I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, well, what would I make Sir Girard? Well, he's a changeling. And then it just kind of clicked in such a perfect way where I've become so known for the kitsune customs, and kitsunes are actually changelings in a lot of Japanese folklore. So it just felt like it went together so perfectly to actually do the Sir Girard and make this version of him a kitsune. So that's what we got.
It's a fabulous figure.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Really like this custom. Right, so that's your display. So,
that's my display. So I'll have 2 tables at Legions Con. So I will have the Mythic customs display for Mythic Shoguns. These are not for sale. These are ones that are on exhibit only. And as I've been very clear, I do not anticipate ever bringing this collection out in full like this again. It'll be in my collection here. So when I do the Mythic meetups at my house, certainly you can see them in my case, but this is the only time they'll be on display like this. I will also have a second table nearby. My family does travel to Legions Con. Last couple years, they've run the Legion Shop table for me. So Legion Shop, obviously we closed that this year, so that's not around anymore, but I do still have a table where I will have a number of my custom figures for sale, and actually just a bunch of random stuff. Like I've got some toys that I just don't need that I'm going to bring. Everything from some higher end packaged items, not even Legions. I'm not even talking Legion stuff.
Yeah.
Some higher end package pieces from like Mezco and stuff, along with the exact opposite, just a bunch of loose figures that are in bags for $5-10.
Cool. So that'll be a fun table to have a look at.
Yeah. Something to see on one table, something to buy at another.
Yeah. And do you ever have much time to buy anything yourself, Jeremy, at Legions Con, or are you literally just running around?
No, I do buy some stuff. Last year, my big buy last year was, if you saw at the Immortal Collections table, they had like a big like Asian style dragon troll.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
I bought that.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
So I got that from Carlo and Tristan last year. So that's actually in my display. It's normally displayed with the Mythic Shoguns, actually. So I do walk around. If there are things that catch my eye, I'll certainly probably buy some Glyos figures while I'm there. I've been bitten by that bug. There's all Glyos behind me. So I do walk around, and when things catch my eye, I will try to pick them up. I don't usually get first shot at things because I am so busy. So by the time that I get around, they're a little picked over.
And do you buy 3D parts or anything, like to maybe, if you're saying, I need a couple of these heads for stuff I've planned in the next year?
Realistically, I genuinely don't.
Yeah.
Only because of my limited time for customizing.
Yeah. I
try not to buy 3D parts unless I know exactly what I'm going to do with them, just because I have so many that I haven't used yet. And it's tough because I have some 3D parts that I've had in a bin for 4 years. Whoa. That suddenly I'll have a project and I'm like, oh, that part is exactly what I need. And it's wonderful to go have access to just pick it out of my bin and use it. But knowing how many I have, I try to avoid just buying just cool parts if I don't have a plan for it right now.
Very good. And
yes, it's very easy to get carried away with that. That's like,
remember, Rich, I listened to the show. I've heard you run down spreadsheets of all the parts and how you're going to use them, and they're going to be part of the Red Hellions faction. You're going to do this. I know that it's easy to go down that spiral.
How many is on your list now? Painted parts you're looking for, Rich? You've narrowed it down to what?
Oh, I've narrowed it down to 49 for this year's Legions Con. And that's excluding the 12 I've already pre-bought from people.
No, these are not full customs. Everything.
These are just I'm trying to limit the full customs this year. Yeah,
okay. I do. So one of the things I do like is I have a number of custom pieces in my collection by other artists and other friends of mine and stuff. So a lot of stuff like that. If I buy something, I like to have it in my collection because not only is the piece wonderful, but I'm friendly with the person and it adds that little extra special level to it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That's why, like, I paint, so I wouldn't necessarily have a reason to buy a painted head, for example, but I try and get painted heads from different people that I am friends with that do paint as well. I think that's always a cool thing to do. So I have a few to pick up this year. Hopefully and get around to a few different tables.
The one artist I don't have something from, I don't have something from you, John, but
true. Well, there's plenty to pick from
this will be the year. I don't have a piece from Eric Miller. And the reason I don't have a piece from Eric Miller is I'm holding out to one day find a way to get him to sell me Figment.
Yeah.
I figure if I'm gonna buy an Eric Miller piece, I'm gonna buy my favorite Eric Miller piece. And I know I'm lucky because I can't imagine how much that would cost me, but I know he doesn't want to sell it. So it's kind of this wonderful scenario where I can tell myself I'm holding out for that piece, knowing I'll probably never have to actually dig into my wallet to buy it.
Yeah, I think it might be some sort of a trade or something. Sorry, Rich.
Yeah. Or if you need any tips about gently harassing people for stuff, then go to Curtis. Obviously, it worked with you with that the Disney princess that you redid for him.
Yes, so, that's the whole thing. Is I made him one because I love that figure. He wanted the Princess of the Frogs so bad that I finally was just like, you know what? I want to make this dude happy, but I'm not selling him mine. So I just made him one.
Right. So we don't want you to be too delayed for your bio. So I just have one more question. Do you have any steers on where we might be going this year with G-Con or?
Well, I do, and I mean, so. We're recording this. It is October 25th, but you have said that this is going to drop on the Monday of Legion's Con week.
That's right, yeah.
So right now what we have going on, by the time that this airs, the pre-order for the Graveyard Skeletons will be done. The Graveyard Skeletons goes until Halloween, midnight on Halloween. So the plan is that next morning, we're going to flip everything over. And like we do every single year, we post the list of this is the schedule for Mythic Week. And as part of that, we announce what G-Con, the name of G-Con is, and therefore what the name of the new wave is. So I think it's safe that I can tell all of you because we're all friends here. You'll keep it secret for
sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that sounded really convincing, Rich. Yeah.
Not even tell the cat.
Sorry, I'm just so excited. I'm trying to just keep a straight face here. So yeah.
So the name of the new wave is going to be Mythic Legion's Reign of the Beasts.
Yes.
And if you permit me, I mean, I am no Mao, but I actually have the write-up of the wave that I'm happy to read.
Please. Yeah,
absolutely. Go for it.
In the first age of the realm, armies of nightmarish soldiers marched across Mythos, set upon the total destruction of all that stood in their path. The Great Mother Selene refused to allow her home to be destroyed or her children to be slaughtered. Calling upon her powers, she brought forth 4 mighty warriors to stand against the evil powers that her fellow creator god Helios had wrought. These warriors would become to be called the Great Beasts, and Selene created each of them specifically to match the horrors of the evil generals called the Dark Four. One by one, these mighty warriors emerged, taking their places as the leaders of armies of brave soldiers dedicated to protecting Mythos. They would defeat their evil enemies during a period that history would one day call the Reign of the Beasts.
Oh wow! I mean, in all our discussions of this over the last year or so, was always mentioning maybe if we got the Beast, even one of them or whatever. But
so
this is music to my ears for sure.
Oh, I'm extremely excited.
But we're Four Horsemen Studios. We like to still have some surprises. We like to do some different.
Yeah.
So this, what I just read to you, this is going to be part of when we drop the announcement on Monday and everything. This will be in there. So what I've shared here, by the time this drops, this will already have been out. It'll be, again, November 1st. On that Friday is when it'll be out. There's obviously going to generate a lot of speculation, like any of our announcements do. I'm still very, very excited for what we're going to present at G-Con, because even with this information, we've got some surprises for some people. And I think as a whole, G-Con, I've been saying this G-Con is unlike any we've ever done. This is the 25th anniversary. This is the 10-year anniversary of Mythic Legions. We've got a really, really great wave with Reign of the Beast to display. But we've also got some other surprises that we're going to be looking at as we look ahead and we talk about, what this anniversary means. I cannot wait to be able to get all this information out there just so I can talk to people like yourselves, fellow fans, about what you've seen and how we're all excited for this. Because guys, you said it at the start. I started as a fan. I started as a member of the community. I still very much consider myself both. I have the distinct privilege of having this position with the studio, being able to play that ringmaster role and help bring this stuff to light. But at the end of the day, I am so darn excited for these toys. I'm with you all on that. And mark my words, I think you guys are really going to like some of the stuff we have to show here.
Oh, no doubt.
Be so cool.
No doubt. And I mean, I knew that being the 25th anniversary, there's going to be, more. Obviously, the armory was more, but I still knew, obviously, and we knew we were going to have the G-Con wave, but I still know that there's stuff that, even within that or around that, that's going to be.
G-Con starts at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
It ends at 4 p.m. If you stand outside of those doors at the end of G-Con, my suggestion or my anticipation is people are going to be walking out just shaking their heads, just going like, wow. Like,
how are we going to set up our tables as exhibitors after that?
It's just the level of announcements and surprises and just everything that we have cooked up for this year. It's going to be next level. That's all I can say is it's a very, very special year. And me worried, I said earlier, one of the challenges is trying to top this year what we did last year. I have no worries that we topped what we did last year with this year's G-Con. I have no idea how we're going to top it next year. Well,
that's next year's problem. Who cares?
Yeah, don't worry about that.
Strictly speaking, this is the anniversary year.
Yes.
You don't have to be this good. You can be a little less good.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can be different. You can be different good. That's also. That's why I said to my wife, I'm different good today.
Yeah.
But it's going to be cool too, because one of the things I'm excited for with these reveals is there are certain things that everyone wants and everyone's expecting. But to me, the most exciting reveals are the unexpected things. The people that, the ones that people like, I did not see that coming. Like, that is super cool. I didn't see that coming at all. So those are the types of reveals that I'm really, really excited for. There's some reveals that I just think people are going to be very excited talking about for a while. And they don't necessarily have to be, figure type reveals. There's some other cool stuff that we have planned that's going to make some ripples.
Wow.
Awesome. This is amazing.
So
I think we've got our podcast content, gents, for the next few weeks after Legion's Con.
Yeah, exactly.
I will tell you guys, though, there is absolutely zero chance I am bringing Rich up onto the stage this year. Because after last year with Rich looking at my phone, I've learned my lesson that he has got like 007 spy level abilities there.
We did suspect that if on the off chance you did, like last year, that Rich would be told to go the opposite side of you. You know,
in my defense,
Big Greg will come out and just go, there you go, mate.
You were good. You saw the secret. I didn't say a word. And you just
I was just so excited. I sat there fidgeting on my seat like a child at like getting ready to do something. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. So
I think sorry, I was going to say, I think one of the actually super exciting things about this year's G-Con and the reveals is what we know now does provide some expectations, some thoughts on what might go on, but actually still there is this whole part of it. It could be anything.
Yep.
And that's, we've already sort of said we're not even going to try speculating because it could be anything.
And that's what's going to happen, Mal. When we drop this name, people are going to speculate what it is. And I'm going to tell you right now, they're not going to be right. Like, they can maybe have some idea, some stuff, everyone always gets certain things correct or close. Yeah. But even within what we're presenting, there's a lot of surprises. There are going to be a lot of things throughout G-Con that are going to surprise people within the framework of what we're doing here.
That's awesome. So, Rich, are you still most looking forward to the breakfast at Intern? That's what you told me you were most looking forward to. So I'm just wondering.
I wasn't most looking forward to it, but those breakfast muffins were incredible. When the Intern email went round and it was like breakfast bagels, was it? I was like, there's no mention of muffins, but okay.
I don't even know where we got the muffins from last year, but I'll have to make sure. I will say Rich from Euro Legions requested the same muffin. So.
Please,
maybe it was even somebody that was attending that was just nice and brought some muffins.
Maybe
could have been.
You're saying there's no speculating. I was going to say, Mal's saying there's no speculating. My family just got home a second ago, and I'm going to ignore them on holiday next week. I'm just going to be running through various things in my head. They could just do whatever they like. It's just, spreadsheets of possibilities. It's just like, whatever.
And you'll just be on the WhatsApp to me and Mal just going, well, lads, I just had an idea.
What it means is breakfast at Intern for a day here, not the
way. No, I do mean the new way.
Sorry, here you go.
Yeah. All right. I don't think we could top that. So, Jeremy, this was awesome.
Thank you, guys,
John. Sorry.
So good.
Can I ask? I had one more question for Jeremy, which is it ties into that last bit, but it is an important thing. You say, Jeremy, that you stay at the hotel whenever you're in the Legion's Con Hotel, whenever you're in New Jersey.
I do.
My question for you, and this is a vitally important question, is: do you have a favorite meal at the pub in the hotel? If you do, what is it?
Oh, man.
So I eat there quite often. They have a mozzarella flatbread that I get quite frequently. They also have, there's a corn chowder type soup that I get as an appetizer, a potato and bacon soup or something, I think it is. That is really good. So I like that as the appetizer, and I get the it's mozzarella with some kind of balsamic glaze on it. I do get that quite often. Nice. They also have a crab cake burger that I really like a lot. I get that every once in a while. The fish and chips are good. I've gotten so much off that menu. I've eaten there so many times. Awesome. I mentioned to Mal when I heard the episode where you guys were talking about, wanting American food, I mentioned to Mal, there's a place. It's so funny because when I come in, for all the years that I've come to this, all the times I've come to this hotel, I always come in from a certain side of the highway where I don't see that there's a restaurant literally right next door. It's unfortunately not within walking distance. You would have to drive there or get an Uber there or something. Yeah. going from the hotel there is probably going to take a few minutes because you have to go on the highway and around. But coming back, it is, I kid you not, it's a 2-minute drive. It is right there. And it's called Miller's Ale House. And it's one of these restaurants that you get anxiety looking at the menu because it's so many options and so much stuff looks good that you start looking at it and you start thinking, am I going to have time to eat here a second night? Because if I am, then I can get this now and that then. But it was really cool. It is a very typical American like restaurant pub type thing where it's, bar and grill type place. But they've got everything from pasta dishes to burgers and sandwiches and chicken dishes, pretty much whatever you want. But it's it's very American. Giant portions, a lot of salt, very, very good. A lot of fried stuff.
Sounds perfect for a weekend where you might have
counters in, hey guys, for that one. Wow.
Miller's Ale House.
Well, we got to snag Noah and his truck.
There you go.
Instead of Jersey Mike's, we'll have to go down there. Cheers, Jeremy.
Yep, thanks for coming on.
Stay safe, Jeremy.
I will. See you guys in a few weeks.
I just had to play the outro, Rich, in case you asked another question.